We are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment this morning, and we've taken a lot of good calls, I think, just about what it's like out there in the workplace these days. With us is Dr. Richard Tarpey from MTSU, and wanted to ask you then, the big picture. We've kind of talked about these incidents and the things that happen right now, but the big picture, what is the impact of this type of behavior in terms of hostility and the like in the workplace on the economy? Big picture.
So big picture, you know, it's always hard to predict anything. So we see employees moving from one industry to another. The challenge is going to be finding employees. So as you indicated earlier, fast food restaurants are going to have to pay more. Mm-hmm. If they want to get people there, they're going to have to pay more than competing jobs that are of equal skill sets. So that means wages are going to go up. Potentially prices go up because I have to raise my prices to pay the wages. So we already are dealing with inflation across the board. Anytime we have inflation, that's going to impact our economy. Right? We're going to have a harder time getting stuff. Our money's not going to be worth as much as it used to be, which is going to put more pressure on wages to go up. And then you throw into the mix the supply chain issues, which is really caused by the same problems, which is lack of labor. Right? We don't have enough people at the ports. It's great to say we're going to keep the ports open in Los Angeles and Long Beach for 24 hours.
But if there's no one there to unload the boats?
Even if we get them unloaded, there's no truck drivers to take this stuff anymore. Right? So we have, it's not something, I know the U.S. administration wants to think, well, I can fix this. The problem is the supply chain is worldwide connected. It's like a balloon. If I squeeze this, the balloon just inflates over here. So, okay, I'm going to get all the containers off the ships. I can't get them on trucks. If I got them on trucks, I can't get them to the stores to get unloaded. And then outside of all of that, China is having the same problem. They can't get their goods from the factories to the ships to get on containers. So it's across the board, across any country, really. So the supply chain wrinkle is not going to be fixed by keeping ports open. Somehow we got to figure out how do we get labor back and working. It all comes down to labor.
And the reason, what's your take on why the labor is not there? I mean, as we've said, most of the unemployment benefits that many people were benefiting from, and in some cases making more than they were before, have gone away. So is it that it's just slow to come back? It's not like all of a sudden these employees just disappeared, the truck drivers that haul these goods and products. Where has it gone? And what will it, what are they doing right now?
And that's the fascinating part, because I don't know if anybody knows really what they're all doing. It's clear that a lot of people took the 12 to 18 months to reassess their situations. Do I want to be a truck driver? Do I want to work in a fast food restaurant, or do I want to work at a retail store? A lot of those individuals have gone and started pursuing some other opportunities, whether it be home business, whether it be internet business, whatever the case may be. I think we see a lot of people, and statistics will bear this out, are not re-entering the workforce. Now it's hard to tell what they're doing, but they're not re-entering
to make
the
a
workforce.
living. I mean, that's where it is, because they were all there before the pandemic. Now they've kind of gone, maybe, and for many of them it's a good thing if they're trying something new. But I mean, they don't just vanish, and then if they're at home, and maybe a lot of people now working at home, starting their own businesses, everything online, but I don't know if they're making enough money to live on. I mean, will it come back? I mean, you assume it must. If not, we're going to just see a lot of businesses shutter, and things will lean out, and then slowly but surely maybe start building up again?
It could be. A lot depends on how the pandemic progresses. So the expectations are the pandemic's going to eventually, we'll call it an end, whether it is or not. But COVID-19 is going to be like the flu. We're going to have it every year. Right? You're going to get a shot, a flu shot. You're going to choose to get the shot, yes or no. You're going to get sick, yes or no, whatever the case may be. But it's not going away. It's not going to just magically wear itself out like the flu didn't. We've had it forever. So when that gets the sense of a normalcy, the questions can become, are these folks going to decide to go back to work? I think we have a lot of families where there are two wage earners that have realized over the pandemic that they don't necessarily need two wage earners. Somebody's staying home now. They had to because their kids were out of school. There was no child care. They're all closed. So people have reassessed, hey, what can I live on? What do I need to live on? Do we really need to have two wage earners out there making money, or can we live on one, and therefore someone staying home? Because schools are still periodically closing. You still have to be prepared for the case of where you're not going to be able to send your child to school. And someone's going to have to take care of them. And we're still in that flux of the unknown.
You're a professor, so you see the students every day. I'm just curious. You talk about the workforce. My son is about to graduate as well, depending on what field he'll go into. It may be in communications. But, I mean, is this a good time for students to be graduating? What do you see, and how do your students perceive this job market we're talking about?
Most of our students at MTSU, or at least my students at MTSU, I should say, have viewed this as a positive time to be coming out of school.
Because there's so much work available one way or the other.
Exactly.
Desirable jobs. What is it? I always view fast food jobs, maybe not as a career unless you're going to be in management, but as a good job to have to make a little extra money, whether you're in college or maybe out of college and you're kind of not sure what you're going to do beyond it. It's a good place to go and get. Wasn't there a study years ago that said something like 80% of the U.S. workforce at some point in their life had worked at a McDonald's or a Burger King?
There was, yes.
Because that's really where you maybe get your first job.
Right.
Which is a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. But I mean, I'm just wondering, good jobs?
Good jobs.
Okay.
So if you think about going out into supply chain jobs, which that's logistics, that's any type of operations, that's manufacturing, retail. So we have internships that we periodically hear about all the time now, many more than I used to hear about. We have job openings that come to us where we advertise them to our students, and we've got more job openings now that I hear about.
I can imagine.
It's everywhere,
sure.
Right? So all the major companies, and I'm fortunate to be in the supply chain and healthcare area, which is two very high need areas.
Yep.
Middle Tennessee is kind of the mecca of supply chain for the eastern half of the United States because we're so centrally located. So if you think about all the companies that are located here, such as Nissan down in Smyrna, Dollar General up in Goodlettsville, all these companies are looking for employees, which is, if you're a graduate or a soon-to-be graduate, you're in a perfect spot right now.
Yeah, I think that's maybe that's a silver lining there. Because I know there were some times where you graduated and you didn't want to be getting out of school.
Not too long ago either.
Yeah, not too long ago, so they went to graduate school.
Right.
Let's go to TJ. TJ, good morning. Hi, TJ.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was calling to make a comment, and good morning to the channel as well. And I just want to say it's not a particular business or establishment or restaurant or store. In general, everyone is being affected in one way or the other. It's people in general during this time. They are frustrated, angry, they're stressed out, they're fearful, they're unsure. And yes, they are underpaid. So as the economy is getting more expensive to even survive, these things are happening all over. I recently went in to take my car to Nissan to have it checked out. And it's not just the customers that are angry. It was an intake representative that was very rude. So I feel that if these companies or businesses and higher ups don't address really the disparity that's going on in this country, things are going to get worse. So hopefully, employers will recognize good employees that have really good work ethic, that they will reward them. And it's basically boiling down to people being paid, So that's my comment.
She's dead on right. Don't want to talk too much about my son. As I said, he works at a Taco Bell over there in Knoxville, but they recognize him as being a good employee, and the dude gets bonuses.
Right.
They pay him and they appreciate it. They don't want to lose him because he treats everyone with respect, and even though there's some hot heads, he gets through it, but they recognize that and they reward him. And that's what should happen to everyone that behaves that way. And if you're a lousy employee, you should get canned.
Exactly. Well, that's true. It's getting harder and harder to do that these days.
Yeah,
obviously.
These days I know employers probably just kind of putting up with whatever they have in that situation sometimes because they can't afford to lose them, even if they have an employee they know is not really giving it their all.
Yeah, and that touches on an area we haven't really talked about, which is the potential for organized labor now. What a opportunity for organized labor to organize employees, because you have a lot of dissatisfied employees right now. They tried to organize the warehouse down in Alabama, Amazon warehouse, failed, it was close. But you see more and more news about organized labor, the strike at John Deere, the strike at the Kellogg's cereal manufacturing plant. I think a lot of the unions have seen an opportunity now to say, hey, it's time that we start paying the employees something. You've made profits through the pandemic or coming out of the pandemic. We made all kinds of cutbacks during the pandemic. Now it's time to start giving some back, and obviously there's resistance from the companies to do so. But I think TJ really hits the crux of the matter, and that's the fear of the unknown. We don't know what tomorrow is. We don't know what next week is. We don't know what inflation's going to be. A lot of people say, I don't know if I have my job next week. If we go back into the COVID-19 situation, I might lose my job again. So I think it's it all comes back down to that stress on consumers,
right?
And how people handle stress, which is historically not good.
I'm really glad you mentioned that about unions. And again, Tennessee is not, I would say, a union-friendly state. It's a right-to-work state, but I mean, you never know. I mean, we have automakers here, and UAW and the like. You know, I mean, there can be that, but I mean, it is an opening. Unions are cyclical. There was a time unions ruled this country, and it was a good thing. And there was a time that they got too much power, frankly, and then all of a sudden it's pushed back. And in some states like here, they're viewed as a dirty word, maybe. My belief is that unions in certain situations can be a good thing, and others not so much. But you really think this may be an opportunity based on the work environment out there that unions can see, all right, these workers get together again, we can demand at least living wages.
I think so, and I think the main criteria for a union is dissatisfied employees. Right. If you have happy employees throughout the building, you're not going to be able to unionize those employees.
Right.
But if they're not happy, you've got an avenue in to convince them that you can make them happy. Whether you can or can't doesn't matter. You just have to convince them that you can make them happy, and they'll vote for the union. So I think there's a big opportunity, and then you put on top of that. The current U.S. administration is very union-friendly. Let's face it. The Labor Board has now swung back toward pro-union and wants to change a lot of the rules to make it easier to unionize. So as long as we have another 2 years of a pro-union Labor Board, unions have an opportunity.
We're going to do another show with you on unions down the road.
Okay,
How about
that'd
that?
be great.
Professor Tarpey, we got to break it off now, but thank you for coming on. It's a real pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure.
Really an interesting conversation. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you much.
Take a break. Be back with a programming note right after this.